Yo, what's up? It's Cody. I took Bystial Dragon Link to a 26th place finish at Indianapolis Regionals, going 7-2-1 in Swiss. It's the second regional in a row. I've topped with this deck now, and I've been playing it for just about a year. And there's a lot of cool things going on in the deck list, so I hope y'all enjoy me talking about it. First up, we've got the Bystial package. Got 3 Lubellion. Some people play just 2 Lubellion, but I feel like Lubellion is just always important to see. Establishing Beast and Regained is the #1 priority because it gives you this huge advantage engine that is giving you Chaos Space and Monster Reborn and, a pop 1 every single turn. And because of a lot of the other things that we're playing in the extra or in the side deck, it starts to be really important to establish Beast in particular. And then, if you draw extra copies of this, they end up being, discard fodder for Safe Air to Chaos Space or Dragon Ravine, or you just get to use this as one of your light banishes for, a Black Dragon or your CED. So it all ends up working out just fine. Next 3 is 3 Magnemite. Really just goes without saying. Magnemite's the backbone of the advantage engine. It gives you a dragon each turn cycle. It gives you a way to banish another light or dark for another draw each turn cycle off of Branded Regained as well. So it's hard to argue with playing anything less than 3 Magnemite. And we've got just 1 Saryuja. It's really important for putting Branded Regained into the graveyard early so that you can get Regained and Beast together. And we have 1 Druis and 1 Baldrake. Druis Worm is definitely the best offensive tool for the package, whereas Baldrake really only comes up in more specific matchups, but there was a moment in round 9 against Madolche Vernisylph that I had where they spent probably 5-10 minutes worth of play just looping Glass Souffle to try and out the Baldrake, but I just held it until I actually got threatened by something and Baldrake put in the work when it needed to. Sprite also has a big problem with this card because Gigantic doesn't have an effect on summon, and they have to deal with Baldrake before they can make Gigantic at all. And then, we've got Branded Beast and Branded Regained. Beast honestly starts to feel like the worst part of the engine to me. A lot of the value lies in that it puts Regained on the field just for free. And the Tribute 1 to Pop 1 is pretty solid, but you have to really be playing the game already to get the most out of it. Whereas Branded Regained, it turns out that printing a card that says Chaos Space and also Monster Reborn, and also you get to activate it every turn, is insane. I've experimented a little bit with playing 2 of the card, since the Reborn is actually only once per turn, where it's 1 per copy. But for this build, I wanted to just keep things simple enough and not rely too heavily on the Bystials, just because light and dark decks really aren't too heavily in the format. Moving on, we've got the classic Dragon Link, the Rockets, playing 2 Tracer, 1 Recharger, and 1 Caliber. I think these 3 are super obvious. I don't really have to go into them too much. Recharger, it's great to be able to actually use the Striker Dragon interaction with his effect again, because last format Ishizu cards and Bystials really made you not want to even risk popping Striker Dragon to add this back to hand and then discarding this, because there's 3 different points where that combo just gets interrupted really badly. But then Rocket Caliber, I think this is actually probably the second best rocket behind Tracer now, because there's just so much utility packed into this card. It combos really cleanly with Bystials. If you open the 1 Caliber and 2 Bystials and no other plays, something you can do is just normal summon the Caliber, use this effect, attributing itself off to summon out the Saryuja, and then that Caliber gives you banish fodder for the Magnemite to summon as well. And then those 2 can overlay into your Tum, and then you get to access the rest of your deck from there. So Caliber's good for that. It's also good for comboing with Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, because it's a way of getting that monster on field without adding to your banish pile. And on top of this, we're playing Melody of Awakened Dragoning, so we're also playing Diabolos, and this effect tributes it as cost, so that triggers Diabolos to summon itself on top of everything else. So the last part that becomes really useful with this card is that you very often are climbing into Romulus first, using one of your baby dragons, and then using the second baby dragon to make Striker Dragon. And after sending Saryuja to grave off of the Dragon Ravine, you can add Caliber, and then Caliber special summons itself for free. So instead of using Boot Sector and a Rocket to get into Pisty, you just use one card in your hand, which is Caliber. And you can save this Boot Sector for later on in the combo. Or you can just not even use it at all and turn it into a draw one off of Saryuja. So that's the main value I see behind Caliber. And for the rest of the Rocket engine, we've already kind of alluded to it, but Saryuja, Boot Sector, and just 3 quick launch. E-Telly for a Dragon Tuner in your deck is just insane. Moving on, absolutely the greatest dragon ever printed, until Magnemon anyway. Starlight Games, just an absolute workhorse in the deck. Gets you access to just about anything you can need at any time. And it combos really well with Lubellion in particular, because it turns basically just like opening Seyfair alone, or let's say opening Seyfair plus a level 4, since you do need the Seyfair to stay in the graveyard. But you can Seyfair, pitch that level 4, add a Chaos Dragon to summon, use these two, then we've made Romulus already. So we're going back to that previous line that we had. We can have that other baby dragon then become our striker dragon. And we can use Romulus's Ravine here instead to send Lubellion to graveyard and use Seyfair to bring it back to your hand after the fact. So this basically represents Seal plus Lubellion plus Beast plus Regained, which is a lot for one card to be doing in a deck. So absolutely, Seyfair is probably the most important card for the entire deck, I would say. All right. And moving on from there, obviously we have the White Dragon and Black Dragon. These are great advantage engines, both off of Seyfair and off of Chaos Space. Just gets you free bodies. Sorry, we're moving cards all over the place here. Let's see. And then, yeah, Chaos Space as well. Initially is a neg-1, and that makes it really ashable because you have to spend the Chaos Space and 1 card from your hand. But because of the way the Bystial engine works, and because of the way the deck in general works, you're often plossing off of sending a card to the graveyard anyway. But still, this is like an insanely ashable target because of the line that we just discussed. And then it being so ashable really helps with Melody of Awakening Dragon, which I think is secretly like the card that you should be ashing in this deck, because giving me access to Chaos Emperor, Diabolos, or Levianeer, any 2 of these 3 cards is probably just going to win me the game off of the back of them. Each of these cards is just so strong. Start with Diabolos, I guess. Like I said before, between Lubellion, Caliber, and Beast, you're tributing a lot of Dark Dragons. And also in this format, Kaiju, Nibiru, Kurikara, those kind of cards are also really common. So this is a way of like protecting yourself from Nibiru on top of it, because you can just delay your Lubellion summon for as late as possible until you're pretty sure that they're not going to Nibiru you. Otherwise, this comes to field as one of your dragons, and if you've melodied, you have one of these 2 as well. So you at the very least have Seals and a way to put Lubellion on board, so you get Seals, Regained, and Beast at the end of your combo, even if you get Nibiru'd, which is enough to play the game. So there is most of the standard stuff. We also have 1 Black Metal Dragon as our 4th normal summon to get us better access into Red Eyes Darkness Metal, and 1 Omni Dragon Brotar, who's just really slept on. It's like a baby Magnemite, basically. You trade anything in hand for a dragon from your deck, and because we go into a tomb very often, you get the choice of a light dark dragon or a dark dragon. But really often what Brotar is doing is adding you the 3rd melody target. So you get access to all 3 throughout the course of your turn a lot of the time. And you know, at the end, Dragon Ravine. Then non-engine, I don't have a lot of room, obviously, for non-engine. There's things to cut, like you could cut the melodies down, you could cut the Diabolos down, you could maybe cut a Black Metal Dragon or the Ball Drake out of the deck, and that gives you up to like 5 or 6 extra slots, but we've got 6 slots here, and I opted for 3 light kaijus, specifically Thunder King here. Leading up to this event, I found that the thing that stopped this deck more than anything else was just Arise Heart Pass, which feels really bad because that's like the lowest board of what Kashtira can do to you. But Kashtira basically is always putting that up, so you need an answer in the board to it. And the prevalence of Forbidden Lands, and as I found out, this regional actually Eagle Booster as well. Things like Book of Moon, Imperm, Book of Eclipse, they don't actually answer Arise Heart reliably enough, whereas Kaiju are always going to answer that card. So I opted for 3 Thunder King here. I retrospectively would have played more Kaiju. I just didn't expect as much Kashtira in this metagame as there actually ended up being. And I was actually playing 3 Eradicator in the main instead. And this card actually did put in a ton of work in the main. I'd say like 3 or 4 of my rounds having it in the main deck just off rip really helped lock out my opponents from playing the game. And obviously that's what the card is there for. There was a lot of Runic. I expected more Labyrinth or Trap Tricks, but I didn't end up seeing any Labyrinth or Trap Tricks. But yeah, that is the main deck. That is 44 cards. And like I said before, there's a lot of like tech options that I've been going through for, like the Melody line isn't strictly needed. You could cut those 4 cards out and be down to 40. You can cut the Baldric out, you can cut the Black Metal out and get 2 more non-engine cards in here as well. But this operated really well for me all throughout the day, and I think I was happy with basically every choice. Just opting for more Kaiju instead of Eradicator would have been really wise. But yeah, we'll move on to the extra deck now. I'm going to talk about the cards I wanted to, or the cards that didn't do anything first, because those were 2 Xyz, Evil Swarm Nightmare and Hope Harbinger. Evil Swarm Nightmare, in theory, just completely stops Kashtira from playing the game, because what they need is like exactly Birth plus Unicorn to be able to play the game through a Nightmare. And even then, like, you just Book of Moon whatever they summon off of the Theosis, or you Book of Moon their first special summon, and you've taken 2 monsters out of rotation. The issue is, like, a lot of the time Kashtira is just going to threaten things like, you know, Evenly Matched or Imperm, or things to just stop whatever answer this would be, because your choice to make this is between this or Borload Savage, and a lot of times Savage just covers more options. It stops them from prospering and digging deeper into the deck for an out. And especially if you have Eradicator up, you can spend your Savage Negate and then Eradicator it away afterwards. And you deal with 2 threats, 3 threats, all at the same time. Then Hope Harbinger, I only ended up making 1 time, because your typical way of making it is Diabolos and Legionnaire or Diabolos and Lubellion. And Diabolos forcing a card out of their hand is usually just as good as Hope Harbinger sitting on board as well. It also makes you really weak to Super Poly, and I kind of worried about that as a side deck option, at least with like branded in the format. So I don't know. Hope is reasonable enough, but it's definitely the most cuttable card outside of this one, which I never made this a single time this event. Whereas Hope and Harbinger ended up on my board, I think, twice throughout the event. But yeah. Moving on, we have... All right, things are a little out of order here. There we are. We have all the typical all the typical Dragon Link dragons, and then Saryuja, which I think is the innovation that Dragon Link needs to really consider harder, because that line I was talking about before with Romulus and Striker and then Caliber to make your Pisty, or whatever extender to make Pisty, this gets you the 4 material for your Saryuja right off the bat, and any Imperms or Ash Blossoms are usually hitting Striker Dragon or Romulus, or even the Pisty. So even if you get to this point and you don't necessarily need the field spells to go off, they would have to hit Pisty exactly, and you'd have to have no extender going into Saryuja. And then your backup plan is to just, you know, make seals, use Striker Dragon for something else, and then call it in. But then Saryuja is digging you 4 cards deeper, looking for, like, you know, your tech cards, your last missing piece of the combo, all the rest of that, and it just gains so much advantage for you, and people do not expect this to come down. So I think it's a very underrated card in general. And Seals, of course, is probably the absolute best monster to put on your end board. I always emphasize seals over everything else. Just the balance and getting access to a Magnuma to search you follow-up every single time is so crucial to playing the game. Moving onward, we've got the generic Link monsters. We've got Masquerena, a Unicorn, Access Code, and Appaloosa. I think all of these make perfect sense. Not really much to be said about very much, besides maybe Appaloosa, which feels a little weird into like a Kashtira metagame, but this is still 3 monster negates most of the time, and there are lines of play where you can make a seal first and end on like Seal, Appaloosa, and Savage Dragon, and that covers so much real estate that it's hard for people to play through that without outing the Appaloosa exactly. So I was actually really happy with how Appaloosa in particular performed, and then the rest did exactly what they were supposed to do. Then our final 3 cards, a Scarlet Dragon, Red Dragon Archfiend, a Baron de Fleur, Borlode Savage, and Heretic King of Atum. So Scarlet feels like a time card, but a lot of the time it's just breaking boards as well, because its 3,000 attack is massive, and with the 2 level 4 tuners that this build is playing, you can also go into Scarlet plus Savage a lot of the time, and Savage equipped with basically any monster is going to be bigger than the Scarlet, and it's going to protect the Scarlet to make sure that its effect can go off. So this is basically a guaranteed board wipe into, 6,000 some damage a lot of the time. So it's just game winning on its own. And then, just your standard Omni negates, and then a Tomb for extension with your Bystials for like gummy hands. This is coming up a lot less now that we're playing a smaller Bystial count, but I still think it's a really important card to have. All right, then side deck. Side deck was not something I was super happy with after the event. I felt like a lot of these cards didn't do what they really needed to be doing, but hindsight's always 20/20. And I was experimenting with a lot of weird options. Like Kurikara I thought would be a lot better than it was, but I never resolved this card and then won the game because of it. I got close to winning the game because of it, but I feel like having to play into the Kashtira board to use this card just isn't as good for Dragon Link in particular. And I would much rather just have, generic kaijus in this place instead. Ash Blossom, meanwhile, did exactly what it was supposed to do, which is just beat Branded. I sided this in against like Runic and Branded, and that was about it. Like, I didn't like it a whole ton into Kashtira because they just searched so many cards anyway that it doesn't feel impactful enough into that kind of a matchup, whereas like stopping a Branded Fusion is super strong. Stopping a Runic Fountain from resolving is super strong. And along with that, we've got 2 Cosmic and a Duster. I would make this a 3rd Cosmic moving forward, but just Spell Trap hate. Every deck now has either a field spell or a continuous spell that you really want to out. And having Spell Trap removal on demand is really nice for this format in particular. Like even like Dragon Link or Branded stuff that's doing similar things, you want to hit like a Branded Lost, a Branded Beast, Branded Regained, those kind of things. Or, you want to hit the Kashtira Birth, the Kashtira Field Spell. And then, Runic hitting specific trap cards on like a Trap Tricks build or a Labyrinth build where you know which card to hit, and they don't have a way of protecting this outside of exactly Imperial Iron Wall is really, really strong. Book of Eclipse is another card I was really disappointed by. Just the omnipresence of Forbidden Lance in particular and Kashtira boards made this feel super dead weight. Like, this card never actually resolved its effect anytime that I used it. That feels pretty bad. So moving forward, I would just like cut this entirely to make room for the Eradicator and just cut losses on that card. So if you want, Astral Pack supers of this card, hit me up. But then we've got the fun card. Skill Drain is very interesting in this deck because I was testing out Abyssal Control list right before this regional, like the week before, and it was feeling pretty impactful to just set up, Skill Drain plus Branded Beast plus Branded Regained, and then you can use Branded Beast to make sure that any dragon summoned gets to resolve its effect under Skill Drain. So like you can summon your Levy near, use Branded Beast, pop a card on field, use Levy to pop 2 more cards on field. Or you can, Seals tributes itself as cost, so Seals always resolves. You can tribute off your Magnamut off with the branded beast to then get the Magnamut search during the end phase. So basically you're still playing with all of your monster effects getting advantage, and your opponent is not. And then they have an additional card that they have to out. That said, Skill Drain didn't really win me very many games that it needed to. Like, I think just one time against Branded, I resolved this card and won the game because of it. Otherwise, it kind of felt like dead weight at times. It didn't really do as much as I was hoping it would do in this specific build. But it's still worth experimenting with a little bit more. But anyway, that's it for the deck profile. I wanted to go over my round summary just a little bit before signing off. So if you're just here to see the deck, cheers. But if you want to hear about how my event in particular went, I'll go through that now. So I had Kashtira as my round 1 against Sam from MSU. It's a good buddy that played at Detroit with me as well, actually. So this is our second time playing in a regional, but I lost the die roll in game 3. It just came down to him having Lance to answer my Book of Eclipse. And that was really all. Like, if you go second against Kashtira, you're probably losing. And if you go first, you're probably winning. That's usually just how that matchup rolls out. And you have to have the appropriate tech cards to deal with them. And I just didn't. Round 2 was Scareclaw, but it was like budget Scareclaw. They didn't have any adventure stuff. They didn't have any Kashtira stuff. So it felt really easy to win that game. Then round 3, I actually played against Ray Die on Sky Strikers, and it was go second Sky Strikers, so losing the die roll didn't matter for me. It also helped that I opened Eradicator both games and just won off the back of that, basically. Felt like a cheesy win, but I mean, Bystials into Sky Strikers just nasty anyway. Round 4 was Runic Naturia. I won that die roll, but I tried to play out game 2 for a bit too long and cut myself off from even getting to play for game 3, so we ended up tying overall. So I won game 1, lost the game 2, and then we tied game 3 because we were still side decking before game 3 even started. Round 5, Kashtira. I lost that die roll, but this was, I think it was the Sean Pittman game too, and he just bricked game 3 and just couldn't play very much at all, so I just had to push one interaction through and got to play the rest of the game because of it. Round 6, 7, and 8, I forget the exact order that I went in. I'm pretty sure I played Branded first, then Runic for Hire, and then Vernasilf Madolche, but it might have been some other order. But against Branded, I just opened really good. Like, I opened 3 Bystials game 1, and then game 2, they ended up having to do Mirror Jade, banish a normal summoned Ash Blossom to get a Albion engrave, and I just had 1 Bystial to hit the Albion. So we won the game off of just better hands. Runic for Hire was like the best match of the day for me. That was the most fun I've ever had playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And that deck is surprisingly resilient. I'm not sure if it's just a matter of like not knowing where to hit the for hire cards or if it really is that legitimate, but it grinded really well against this deck, which I feel is also one of the best grind decks in the game. But I did end up just winning advantage out overall and taking that round. And then round 8, Vernasilf Madolche, talking of another deck that's just like surprising in how well it can grind. Being able to, spin 4 cards per turn cycle is absolutely crazy for that deck. And I was really impressed as well by how well Vernasilf Madolche actually played. And then my round 9 was against Kashtira again, and this is where I found out that Eagle Booster is a card. And Eagle Booster actually stopped my Ash Blossom from preventing Shangira from summoning a Fenrir. And the quality of my hand was such that the Fenrir interruption alone was actually enough to stop me from playing the game, unfortunately. So again, like having a Kaiju instead of that Book of Eclipse, I would have probably just won the game because we hit the Fenrir with the Kaiju and then play our whole game out. Yeah, and then round 10 was Earth Machines, which yet again, it was another deck where the grind was absolutely real. We went for 25 minutes game 1, and I managed to win that first game, so we win the second game every time. We just let them do their entire thing. We build as much of a board as possible and just end on Scarlight to clear whatever monsters he still has and call it a day. And that was enough to get us 26th overall. So thanks for checking out this video today. Hope y'all learned something. Hope y'all got some cool ideas out of this. And I will see you at the next one. Cheers.